Hi, everyone. We're so happy to have you here today. It's Felicia Saraceno, Everyday Senior News. And today we are going to talk to our special guest. I'm so grateful to have Anita Kushi with Kushi Law Firm right here in Southwest Florida. She's located in Naples. Welcome.
Greetings, everyone.
Yes,
Thank
we're
you for having me.
absolutely. Well, we're going to talk about some important topics today, some that you may not have ever thought of in the past. And one of the big things that we're seeing is as we are getting as we all are getting older, which unfortunately is happening, right? And we're starting to notice.
Unfortunately,
I know, unfortunately, I'm like,
or
we were just talking to a family member last night on who their children are taking care of them, and they have moderate to late stage Alzheimer's and dementia, and just how the dynamics are changing, and things are just happening without fail. Every day there's something new that's happening, right? But one of the most important things that we're going to talk about today is a trend that we're noticing here. And I guess I shouldn't say trend, but it's something that we've identified for a past conversation that Anita and I had, that I'd like for her to shed some light on. So can you tell us a little bit more about what is the gray divorce?
the great divorce is generally someone over the age of 50 who finds themselves all of a sudden either in um, a surprise divorce where they're totally blindsided, or rarely it's mutual where the couple has been married for years and years and years, and they're in their 70s, and for one reason or another, sometimes it's for financial reasons, they decide that they are going to file for divorce. So it's happening more and more, unfortunately. For my firm, the last 9 months, we've seen more of this, and it became all of a sudden like our news of the week of another person in their 70s or 80s filing for divorce. And let's say 9 out of 10 times, one of the spouses was not expecting it. Some are blended families, some are not.
That makes sense. Now, um, I see you said some are blended families, some are not. On kind of a scale, how much are blended families a percentage to not blended families that you're seeing this happen?
In my firm, we've seen, except one that I can think of, every single one was a blended family. Some had been married for 20 plus years.
Mhm.
Another couple was married like 17 years. But it for what we've experienced and have seen for our clients is usually a blended family. Only one couple they were trying to separate, if we can call it mutually, versus um, being because of blended issues or children pushing their parents to separate. So that's at least at our firm what we have seen. It could change with time, obviously, and maybe other firms have seen other things.
Yeah, yeah, and it's an unfortunate thing that does happen. And um, I will tell you a story. I These folks were not married, the one that I'm going to tell you of. However, down in our area, we see a lot of an age gap between
Mhm.
the male and the female. Sometimes it's 10 years, 20 years, 30 years difference. And the one that the story that I'm gonna tell, um, it was, I think they were about 30 years difference. And
Okay.
they were dating for a long time together, lived together for a long time. And he ended up getting terminally ill. And she took care of him. And in the meantime, the male, he did have, I think it was two or three grown daughters, and they were very close in age to the new girlfriend, so to say.
Mhm.
Now, she cared for him through his terminally ill diagnosis. The daughters, I don't know how often they were there or not, but she had given up her job, her life to care for him. Upon his death, they changed the locks on the doors. They boxed up all her stuff and put it in the hallway because they lived in an apartment, more of apartment style, condo
Mhm.
down here. And they took the keys away to her car because he paid for her car. And they even took the dog. And so what ends up happening is when you're unmarried, that becomes it's very sad. It's very brutal is the best word I could use, because no matter what your differences are with a person, to do that to someone is just heartbreaking and heart wrenching. Now, I've seen it happen with unmarried couples, and I've seen it happen with married couples as well, for second or third marriages. And it's devastating when you hear these stories and they say they have no place to go and they need to move, and they barely have any funds left in their
Mhm.
account. And they had lived with this person for 20 years, 30 years, 10 years, whatever the case may be. So we do see this happen in our area. And I'm sure you have stories of the same thing that have happened before as well.
Yes. And unmarried couples, they have essentially zero rights.
Mhm.
At least if you're married and you can go through the court system, you have rights. Yes, it's going to take you time to go through the court process. However, as an unmarried couple, if, for example, a guy is paying for everything or everything is in his name, it's going to be almost impossible for you to prove that you have some rights unless you can show that you contributed to, let's say, the mortgage payment or the maintenance of the home, etc. But that is a very fact intensive case where you're going out back years and years and years to try and prove that you have some property rights. So unfortunately, people go in with very good intentions and then things happen down the line where the dynamics, family dynamics, unfortunately, we see also with some diminished capacity where people change. They may
Yeah.
not want to change, but they think that this person is out to get them, or they just have declined cognitively. Therefore, this person that took care of them, whether it's the guy or the lady, now they no longer want to be with them. And essentially, if they're not married, they kick the person out to the curb, or it's the children of that person. So
Mhm.
without any documentation to show what rights do you have, maybe you have a co-tenancy agreement in place that says this person can live here. This cannot be revoked unless both parties agree. Something where the other partner who is not on the deed or on the bank accounts or whatever the case may be, there's some documentation to show that you two agreed versus leaving it to chance in the future as to what the kids may do or what the other partner may do. And Florida does not have common law, so it does not matter if you've been together 30 years,
Oh,
50 years. Florida does not recognize the relationship as a marriage, so you have zero rights on paper. Other states do, but not in Florida. So having the marriage license to show that you're married gives you a lot of rights, in the state or in the under the federal government's eyes.
that's very interesting. I didn't know that. See, you
Mhm.
learn something new every day.
Yes. And
Yeah.
some people say, well, I've been with this person for 30 years. And doesn't Florida and no, Florida does not recognize it. You have to be in a state where they do recognize it. And so there is no benefits that you get from Social Security. There's no pension benefits that you would get as being the girlfriend or the boyfriend of 30 years. You don't have any rights unless they have chosen or you both have agreed to include each other in your estate plan, in your benefits for life insurance, pension, business ownership, etc.
That's very interesting. And the thing about that too is I think that that's a huge common misconception. I've heard it around my own friend group,
Yep.
family group. I do have family members who they're in their 80s. They don't want to get married. But they do have a will and they have things set up in their will to include their significant other because they've been together for longer than 10 years, right?
Mhm.
So, especially because they live together, they're not on each other's deed, right? So, if
Right.
something happens to one or the other, they don't want to have one sitting out in the street or have to be forced out because family comes in and says the adult children come in and say, nope, we're done. We're going to sell the house or oh, we're
Mhm.
moving in. So, you do
Although
see that happen.
yes, the issue you have though with people that just have wills, as I'm sure you've heard it, and dealing with the elderly population, at times, the family will go to the hospital, will go to hospice, or wherever the individual is, and basically have them sign a new will so that they are going to disinherit their partner. And then the partner who thought, well, we are in each other's wills, and therefore I'm entitled to XYZ. And then when the actual will is probated, they find out that, let's say the day of the person passing or a few weeks or days before they passed the will was changed, therefore totally removing the partner or whatever inheritance he or she was going to receive, and basically just including either the children or the family members that got involved. And it actually did happen to one of my clients, not married. She was the beneficiary of this gentleman's will, and as he got sick, the girls came in, swooped in, changed everything. And basically, like you said before, this lady had to leave the house that she had been in for years and years and years. They
Oh,
totally switched on her. They had had a great relationship, and that's what people say. Well, I've known these girls or these children since they were teenagers or in their 20s. I've known them for 30 years. It does
mhm.
not matter. When the parent gets sick, for whatever reason, some of these children really change and they want and they do actually act very differently towards the partner. It's very sad to see, obviously. And depending on your financial wherewithal, if you're in your 70s and you've been relying on each other and all of a sudden now you have to move out. I mean, moving is hard enough. Imagine if you're in your 70s, you're not well physically, you're not well financially. It is very, very, very stressful. And it's very sad that it gets to that. But I have seen it. I'm sure you have too, or if you haven't, at least,
Yeah,
from other friends and colleagues. And it's tough. I can't imagine being that age and then having to all of a sudden now have to find and start a new life because the kids, it's usually the kids, come in and change everything. Like you said, sometimes change the locks, take
change
the
the locks.
dog, and you're in the street.
Yeah, I've seen it happen way too many times. I've also seen it happen in a very rare case with a non-family member. And I have a woman who lived here um, in her late 80s, was very frail and fragile, had a
Hmm.
housekeeper. And when it came time for her to say, and she had an estranged son, it came time for her to say, "Oh, I need to get someone in here for home care." The housekeeper said, "Let me come and help you."
Hmm.
That is a big no no because you want to have a home care companion come from a reputable place that does quality control checks and whatnot. Well, this lady did not do that. And the housekeeper moved in, became her friend, and a few years later had her change the power of attorney of her home, everything she put into her name.
Hmm.
And she moved all her family in, the housekeeper,
Oh, wow.
and she transferred the house deed over to her name. And this woman, and she was probably about 88 years old by this time, um, they kicked her out and she had nowhere to live. This happened
Mhm.
right here in Naples. And so it was brought to my attention. Oh, this was years ago, maybe 6 years ago, 5, 6 years ago. And we had to get the Collier County sheriffs involved. Um, she overdrafted at her Wells Fargo bank. I distinctly remember that. She overdrafted $25,000 in fees. And I remember saying, did the bank not find this to be questionable? Like, were they the same woman was coming to cash large checks weeks in a row, every single week. Like, where's the responsibility, right?
Mhm.
And now we're getting these overdraft fees coming through. Once you kind of get up to $1,000, don't you think that it's something to look into? So to put it into perspective, the state's attorney got involved because it was a big deal. She stole hundreds of thousands of dollars and sold a house underneath her, from underneath her. So it these things happen, and unfortunately, there are times where you have to know that you're relying on the people and you're trusting the people that are um, in your sphere. They're here daily, and you want to make sure it's all for good intentions. And I think everyone starts out with good intentions, but sometimes they weave down a road that's not so great.
Sure. And what we see is because, for example, in using this as an example, this elderly lady, because their circle of friends gets smaller as they get older, and people pass away, they move away, they become sick.
Mhm.
They don't have as many people to run things by. Or to say like, hey, I'm thinking for my housekeeper, for example, to move in and just have a conversation where someone may say like, maybe that's not such a good idea, or have you thought about XYZ? And so as their circle gets smaller and smaller, they become alienated, and it's much easier to take advantage of someone who's also by themselves for the most part and cognitively declining. So it's an easy swoop in for a lot of people to be able to do things that they normally wouldn't be able to do. And no one has been 88 before, no one has been 78 before. They don't know what it's going to look like at that age or what kind of illnesses they're going to have, where they may not be the person they thought they were going to be. Um, I went to a rehab center 3 or 4 months ago, and the lady was 88 years old and she had fallen. And she said, I never thought I would be here.
Wow.
Well, she was very fit all her life, has a big property that she has taken care of for years and years, is divorced, no children. And so she never thought what it would look like at 88 if I can't go up and down the stairs, or if I fall down and I don't have anybody to check in on me. So as they get older, and people like their independence in America, right? It's very much like, hey, I'm my own boss. This is my house. I get to do what I want. And that is
Mhm.
true when you can handle everything. As you get older, unfortunately, we can't. You and I are not going to be able to handle everything that we handle now 30, 40 years from now. That's just
It is
reality.
reality.
Yes.
Absolutely. It's 100% just reality. But I also do think that you just have to plan for your future properly. And when you are planning for your future, what do you feel is the guidance that you have? It doesn't matter if you're married, unmarried, whatever the case may be, second marriage, first marriage, blended marriage, whatever the case may be.
Mhm.
Who should you involve in the planning process while you're doing this?
So, as you said, as we've discussed, the different family dynamics are going to impact what you do, but you should always, always have an attorney to help you, to at least guide you. You can use the internet. Not everything in the internet is correct. So it can be a starting point where you can educate yourself, but having counsel to be able to give you advice, even if you don't take their advice, at least they're informing you, hey, if you go into this marriage without a prenup and XYZ happens later, you're fully exposed, or you're
Yeah.
going to have these ramifications, and you at least know. So depending on the person's age, sometimes children have to be involved to help mom or dad out. If they're married, usually the couple is involved together. Obviously, sometimes they're not. Believe it or not, we have married couples who do not do planning together. Obviously, there's a major issue going on in that marriage. So it really does depend. However, planning and making sure that you have the people you want to be able to step up if something were to happen, and anything can happen at any moment's notice
Mhm.
without any warning, as we know, so that someone can step in and take care of you, whether it's for legal issues, financial, or for healthcare issues. And a lot of people, especially married couples, do not know that when they're married, that their spouse cannot do a lot of things for them. They just assume, well, I'm married, so my husband can do everything for me, or my wife can do everything for me. And that is not true. So unless you have it documented through a power of attorney that says, I nominate this person, and if he or she can't act, then I have this backup person. If you, for example, need to sell your home and you are in a coma or you have dementia because you're in your late 70s or 80s, no one can sell at home for you unless they have a power of attorney, whomever you've designated. Otherwise, the court is involved. So having a solid power of attorney with people, with a person you trust to be in charge,
Yeah.
healthcare agent to be able to make medical decisions for you, because by statute there is a hierarchy as who it can be, but sometimes the person that's in the list, maybe you don't want them. So having documented that, even though by statute, let's say it's my son, I actually don't want him because I haven't talked to him in 40 years. I actually want my friend Felicia to be my
Hmm.
healthcare agent, or I want my sister, who's a nurse, who's going to be making better decisions for me than my son, who is a mechanical engineer, for example, or I haven't talked to him in years and years, which we have that happen. And very important, things change, therefore the plan has to change. It's not something you do once, because people are like, well, can I change my plan later? Sure, you can change your plan later as long as you have capacity. The thing is, people do it once 30, 40 years ago and they've never looked at it again, and then they don't even realize what's written. So having your plan reviewed to make sure that the right people, the right distributions, etc., are in place. And of course, for blended family, absolutely, it's very important, some type of prenup, not some type, a prenup or a postnup.
Yeah.
And for those who are not married, an agreement as far as the house is concerned. It's called a co-tenancy agreement, where the
Hmm.
parties agree, if you and I live together, what rights do I have if this is your home? Or what
Yeah.
rights do you have if this is my home? So that, you know, if I pass away or get sick, then all of a sudden you don't find yourself locked out of the house because my kids are being super cruel and want to kick you out, even though, let's say, we've been together for 30 years.
Yeah,
Um,
absolutely.
People are a
Now,
little bit hesitant, but they are very important and very, very, and obviously protect you when things do go wrong, which sometimes they do go wrong.
it does, things happen. Now, how often should someone take a look at their will to get it reviewed? Now, I always know as a rule of thumb, if you move from one state to another, that's always a trigger. If you buy or sell real estate, that's always another trigger. And
Uh,
that's what I always recommend my clients to say, I think it's time for you to review all of your estate planning docs.
Yes, it's also going to depend when they did it. Sometimes they had minor children, so their plan
Mhm.
was very different when they have minor children. Obviously, if there is a life event where they get married or they get divorced, obviously an update is required.
Yeah.
If they have new children, they will need to review their plan. And it's not just the will, right? It's also the rest of the documents that create the plan because it's not a standalone document. Sometimes there's trust involved, so reviewing the trust. I had one client one time, she had given her daughter, I think, 20%, but her daughter is fully disabled and she's not allowed to inherit that much. And the mom is like, "Oh, I thought I gave her $2,000, not 20% of my estate." So reviewing it, in this case, had been set up years and years ago. So reviewing it to see what actually was written, and maybe a mistake was made. Maybe she did say 2,000. The lawyer put 20%.
Hmm.
There's no way to remember if it's been years and years. So reviewing it, once a year. If obviously nothing has changed, then you let it be. Or if you want to include new people in your plan, nieces, nephews, friends, then obviously you would want to do an update or review, more frequently. Again,
Yeah.
I've had clients that change their plan every 3 months, and I have clients that have done their plan 5 or 6 years ago, and they've never wanted to change it. So it really is a um, individual. It's like per individual as far as what's happening in their life, whether they want to add, whether all of a sudden they find themselves in a great divorce, which they weren't expecting at all. So that means they will likely change their entire plan. And we've had a few clients where even though their plan had their husband, everything then had to be changed because they were going through a divorce and they didn't want the husband to be the agent and the beneficiary and being fully in charge basically when they totally abandoned their spouse.
Yeah. Well, I enjoyed our conversation today. This is really important for everyone to know. If someone wants to get in touch with you, Anita, what's the best way they can do that?
The easiest way would be to call 239 or they can go online. The law firm name is Kushi, Kushi law firm. We're in Naples, Florida, and we focus primarily on estate planning, probate, and trust administration. We do not handle any other type of cases, so this is our focus. And we're committed to it, and we're very thankful for this conversation to have people at least learn what they should be doing so that they can at least help themselves and their loved ones to make things as smooth as possible.
Wonderful. I love that. And stay tuned for more of these fun podcasts that we have coming up, just to share information, share the wealth, and make sure that we are prepared for our future. So once again, thanks so much for joining us. Everyone have a great day.
Thank you so much.
Just stop the recording.